So, seeing a good moves lately. Welcome back to episode number 8 of the Survivor 49 podcast thing. I'm Joey Overding. I'm hosting, but today I'm proud to be joined by somebody who is splendiferous, somebody who is sassy, somebody who is Sarah. How are you doing, Sarah?
Wow, lots of S words. I mean, there's lots of S names on the season. There's no Sarah, though.
Hmm.
So hopefully I'll be called Sarah the whole rest of the episode, and it'll work
Yeah,
great for me.
and there's not really a good way to shorten Sarah either, not like Soph. So
No,
it would be
there really is. I mean, Soph is
Sarah.
also, I would say, not a great way to shorten Sophie, but
I would say it's pretty bad, honestly. I just okay. Let me just get this off my chest. I've been thinking about this for a while. You got a Sophie, you got a Sophie, who's also known as Soph sometimes.
yeah.
How have we taken this long to come up with like a solution to this problem? They knew that this was going to be an issue beforehand. You could have gone like Sophie A or Sophie B or something like that, or you could have
Mhm.
gone a last name could have been Smith or whatever their last names are.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I started listening to the episode that Christian Hibicki did with Rob, and he was
yeah,
talking about how if we continued with like yellow Sophie, then we could have gotten a whole new like color genre, like purple
mm,
Kelly. And I was like, that would have been good because we have solved it before just by doing that.
yeah, and I think that's fine as well. But I I liked how the intro for this episode made the subtle change. The very Stalin-esque where they take the thing that Sophie with an I and then they change it to soap like nothing ever happened. It was
Yeah.
always like this. Whatever.
They could have just also not cast Yellow Sophie on the season because spoiler alert, don't really care about her.
Yeah, I still don't really know who she is. They're trying to make me know who she is and they're failing. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I don't know
you know.
why I should care, and they have not convinced me why I should care.
All right. Um, very true. But I mean, that's just one element of the season, the Sophie versus the Sophness of it all. Tell me, Sarah, what have you thought about this season so far?
I don't think I care very much about this season. I liked this episode. Like this was a good episode. And I do understand that the episodes are getting better, but I feel like I just don't care. And I'm also like annoyed more so than usual by things that always happen. Like when you have
Yeah.
the disaster tribe, you know those players a lot more, and then you don't know so many other players. Like in this episode, when like Christina found the idol and she talked about like, well, I'm so glad that like I found it with these two. I'm like, why? Like I know nothing about who you are, even a little. I don't know who you're in an alliance with. I don't know who likes you. I don't know anything. And like this is like we're far in the season for me to not know so much. And like with the division of, who was going to tribal, I felt the same way where I was like, I don't know any of these relationships. I knew Rizzo, obviously, and I knew like Jawan stuff, but I didn't know why Sophie was talking to MC. I didn't know if they had a good alliance and what was going on there. Like, I just feel like I'm let down a lot by editing and by choices that they just continue to make with three tribes.
Yeah. No, I mean, you are very right. And it's interesting because I was thinking about it. And I think what you brought up with Christina was a very good point where she finds societal. Frankly, this should be like a big deal of the episode. Like,
Mhm.
this girl found an idol and like she has it. Like, it's there and who knows what can happen here.
Mhm.
But maybe it's because of the editing. Maybe it's because of my pessimism. Maybe it's because of whatever. But I saw her get that idol and I was like, oh, is she getting blindsided this episode? Because I haven't seen anything else about her this whole season. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So that didn't end up happening, but that's because she won immunity in the split tribal thing, which is another thing that we keep doing inexplicably and
Mhm.
annoys me. But I mean, I know for me, like I've just I feel like this season's just kind of gone through the motions for better or
Mhm.
for worse.
Yeah.
For worse probably. But I mean other than the snake bite that happened, what has really the question I ask is what has separated this season from any other season? And the answer is probably nothing so far.
Yeah. I don't even think if you ask me to name people that have gotten eliminated in this season, I don't know if I can name 2.
Yeah. No, I was looking at the cast list, just pulling it up for the cool graphic that I have, and I saw Nicole, who was the first person eliminated. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God, yeah.
oh my God, I forgot about that. That happened. That was roughly like a month, maybe 2 ago,
Yeah.
month and a half, like recent history.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
almost said who's Nicole, and then I remembered. And I think I only remembered because she is someone I would recognize.
Yeah. But yeah, beyond that, I mean, it took so long for me to recognize Sophie, also known as Yellow Sophie, also known as the Sophie with an E, as an individual who existed. And here she is, and now it's kind of okay. I'm gonna go on a tangent, but it's happening, so we're gonna have to deal with that collectively.
I'm on the ride.
I don't like the response. I feel as if the response to Genevieve, who had this absolutely invisible edit and then turned it on at the end of the game and became this, strategic queen that everybody loves and wants back on seasons. I feel like that is a bad thing for editing, and I don't like the fact that we just kind of let it pass because she came on at the end and became a good player. The fact of the matter is Genevieve was invisible for the first 6 episodes of the season. I didn't even know how to pronounce her name right for the first 3 episodes. I kept pronouncing it Genevieve or something.
Oh.
I pronounced it better than that, but still bad.
I believe you.
And I feel like I don't want to say that's what's happening with Sophie because I feel like we've gotten even less of Sophie than we did Genevieve. But I see the writing on the wall that they want to make me think that Sophie is a good player who has a real chance of winning the game. And they want me to see her as a good player. And it's she might be a good player. I can't deny this fact. She's made it to the top 9 now. That's impressive. She's up the jury. But I have not been given a reason to care about her character arc. So
can I give you a timely example of what I think about when these things happen?
I love time.
I remember watching, I don't remember what season of Stranger Things, one of the ones that happened a million years ago, but they had an episode where they were trying to have Elle and Max be friends. And they had a montage of them, doing sleepover stuff, hanging out, talking about boys, doing things. And I was so pissed off because I was like, you didn't earn any of this. Why are we here? When have they ever done anything? And they were just trying a cheap way to show us that they're buddy. And I feel like this mostly happens with women. I can't really think of a man on Survivor who has been not in it at all and then very suddenly in it. I've thought of the opposite. There has been men that have been totally in it and then not in it at all. But we don't do this with men and we do this with women. And it feels cheap and it feels insulting whenever it happens. And I just get mad. And I feel bad because I try to get mad at Survivor as a whole, as production, rather than Sophie or Genevieve. And maybe I'll get there eventually. I don't know where Sophie's gonna go. But I felt myself just being mad at Sophie, which is also annoying. But yeah, they need to stop doing this. It's just bad.
Yeah, I think that's sort of my my takeaway of the episode is they need to stop doing this. There're just a lot of things in this episode where I'm like, yeah, you can't be doing that anymore. The obvious one is the split tribal council, which
oh my God,
we'll get into it, but every time since Survivor 43, it's been a black person going home. And I will keep preaching it until it changes once. And so that's the big thing. But it's not just that. It's also, hey, we have in the entire pre-merge, everybody has to go through these routines to get an idol, and then you can just find one and take that at the merge. And it's it's as simple as that. we need to change, I don't know, what you just said, the editing around women just in general, really maybe just the editing in general, but I definitely think for women, like, certainly it's because this is not the only time. Genevieve and Sophie are not the only time they've tried to pull this stunt. So,
absolutely. And like, I don't not going to be an expert on all this stuff, but my personal opinion is that I feel like a common mistake that we have in name a field, name a place where there's a policy about diversity. They try to write something in without changing any of the structural elements of what they do, and then they just expect it to work. And you can't do that. And Survivor has shown us time and time again that you can't do that and why you can't do that. And yet I don't hear any very loud criticism of like, you are doing the same things continuously. The way that you structure your show is bad for certain types of people at certain types of points in the season. And that's a flaw of the show. It's not a flaw of the cast or a flaw of anything else but the show.
Yeah. I mean, I know that for the split tribal council thing, I have personally been preaching this from the mountain for over a year now because it's been happening far longer than a year. But, you know, this is something I noticed ever since the first split tribal council was in Ghost Island. And then since then, every other split tribal council ever, a man has never gone home. A white man has never gone home.
Really?
A white man has never gone home. And then Murgatory as well, other than Jay Maya, who got eliminated with a shot in the dark in Survivor 45. Every person to get eliminated in Murgatory has either been a black man or a white woman. Every single one. And it's like, these are interesting statistics, but they're also like, Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting because I was looking on social media as one does after the episode, and people are increasingly aware of this, which is good. But like, people are like, oh man, that, you know, only 4 seasons or 5 seasons of this isn't a big enough sample size. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's staring you in the face. The diversity initiative, it still exists. Look, Survivor is something that fascinates me because it's a social experiment. And at the end of the day, part of having a social experiment is inevitably, you know, your biases or implicit biases will show themselves. Some seasons it's way more obvious than others. Sometimes full-blown racism comes into effect, whatever. I'm not saying any of these contestants are, but I think everybody is implicitly biased, myself and yourself included. That's just how the world works. That being said, the fact that production has done nothing about this and hasn't even acknowledged it. I think about this episode. This episode was good, but it could have been great. Or it could have at least been, you know, something to get eyes on Survivor again. Because the narrative was there where MC, the reason why she went to Jawan about, hey, your name is out there, is because she didn't want yet another black person going home in this situation and yet another black person to be immediately on the jury, which is what always happens. And did the episode show this? No, it didn't. It just said, well, MC did that for some reason, but didn't explain why. And so.
Yeah. And I also think that I kept thinking about like Rizzo in this episode, unlike everyone else that went to tribal. But like Rizzo, I mean, first of all, had very good confessionals, like a very good arc, very like clear understanding what's going on. But I was like, how can Rizzo do this? Because Rizzo is playing like it's not his first time. He's like, I don't care if I'm 10th or 4th, like I'm going for this, and so I'm going to do some risky things, which like I don't usually like that type of player. And I kept like trying to like mull over why I thought it was interesting and why I was like rooting for him, but also why I don't typically. And I kind of came to realize that like the only people that can afford to not play like it's their first time are white men. Or like men who are not going to be counted out quickly. Because I don't want to be dismissive. I forgot what Rizzo said what his ethnicity was, but I don't.
He's Albanian. Yeah, Albanian.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, essentially young, more white presenting or standard attractive men.
Yeah.
And when you have that perception of you, then you're allowed to do things that are riskier. You can't do that if you don't have that. And that is not something that Rizzo earned. Like, he's a good player. And I think that he is doing really well. He's really entertaining. But, like, part of why he is who he is not because he's talented. It's just because he is this guy.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. And I mean, you think about Survivor history, how many people who aren't white do you see playing games like Rick Devens or Rizzo or you know just like non men like
Yeah.
Tony is kind of the obvious example. Kagayan's behind me and he played this chaotic game, and it's like I'm trying to think if I've ever seen a girl be able to pull that off on their first time.
Yeah.
And I don't think so, but I don't think it's for, a lack of trying or a lack of that want.
Yeah, I don't think, like, I have a lot of recency bias and I don't have a good history of Survivor, but like Camilla tried and like all of it went to Kyle.
Yeah,
so like
that's true.
I'm pretty sure if we did look back or figure it out, like what women have done this, it probably didn't help them. It probably pushed some guy further.
Yeah, I mean, the season I think about where people are trying to play like it's not their first time, where trying to make the perfect move is Survivor 46, where so many people went home with an idol. And it's interesting because if you think about some of the more, quote unquote power female players, shall we say, the people who went home with idols a lot of the times were those players. It was Venus, it was Tiffany, and it was Jem who had an idol who was trying to play it at the perfect time. And for whatever reason, it doesn't happen. Whether it's people are more willing to blindside, somebody with an idol if they're a girl, I don't know. Once again, this is all implicit bias. I'm just kind of speaking from my heart right now.
Yeah.
I think it's real. Yeah, and I don't know. It is also interesting. I think about Savannah in this episode in conjunction with the rest of this, and it's like at the start of the episode, she's on the bottom, and people are kind of like, "Yeah, I'm done with her." And then as soon as she gets power again, everybody's super scared of her again, and is like, "This is I don't know." Savannah's interesting because she's a reporter. I'm in journalism, so I have known people like Savannah who speak the exact same way. It's uncanny, and the way that they speak about Savannah, and part of it maybe is fair, but like the way they speak about her is like, oh, she's like a conniving, like mean girl. But at the end of the day, I think she's just a Survivor player like anybody else. And it's interesting because she is this confident woman who speaks about herself, who has a degree of confidence, maybe cockiness. Because of that, everybody's like scared of her and sees that as like you are going too far. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's just because that's her personality or if it's once again just like an implicit bias among people.
I think it goes to, and maybe this is also part of why I'm not enjoying the season. Because I think the not to get in a larger conversation, but the world is in a different place than it has been.
We're here.
Yeah. So it kind of goes to Rob's, like, the losers, the threats, and the nothings or whatever. I forgot what words he uses. The threats, I
don't recall.
Who cares? But essentially that concept of like some people just shine, some people you think about, some people you don't. Because I also noted that like Sophie in this episode was extremely like presenting a very cocky argument when saying like, well, let's just tell Rizzo that it's me. We're never gonna have another chance to get Sophie out. And like some people are threatened by Sophie because she won the first immunity, but like no one's talking about her like she's conniving or like she's bad. Like they're just kind of like she's just kind of nothing. And Savannah isn't nothing. But like I don't think like I think that I have overall become like less interested, which is very new for me. Like I've watched every season of Big Brother. I haven't watched every season of Survivor because I fell out of it to watch more Big Brother, but like I have watched reality TV shows my entire life.
Yeah.
And I have just like I didn't watch the season of Big Brother. I'm not enjoying the season of Survivor, and I just feel like it's not interesting to me because it doesn't actually feel like anything new is happening. I feel like I am seeing the same continuations of some people are just disregarded, some people are just treated well, and things just happen. And that is less interesting than when I have a belief that people can do something to overcome. But like I just sort of don't. Like I think that if Sophie continues to get an edit and we know of who she is, and besides just taking Soph's name, I don't think anyone will be that impressed. Like I think it will be maybe like an Erica situation where it's like, well, how did this happen? And so I just don't believe people are able to move very much out of the place that they are of how they are perceived, and that's less fun to watch.
Yeah, let me ask a follow-up question because I found your comment about reality TV and how like it feels like nothing new is happening. I can sort of agree with that, at least with these CBS reality shows. And so I ask, how much of that do you think is dependent on, hey, this is Survivor and there hasn't been that much new stuff that's happened in the past seasons, and how much of this is there's been 50 seasons of Survivor?
Yeah, I think well, also CBS is where most of this happens, and like who's in the higher ups at CBS, and like what are they doing? And so
not good things.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be very interesting. We'll never know this, but it would be very interesting if Survivor and Big Brother, let's just name the top two of this, never existed and the first season happened in 2025. Like, I don't think the first seasons or the first like several seasons of either of those shows would happen in the same way now as they did back then. And
no way.
I think it's because of probably a lot of influencing factors. I think, if we're going to be less like, doom and gloom, I think like the least doom and gloomy is I think people's attention spans and interests are different and worse. Like, I don't think we actually care about a slow narrative in the same way. I think we want quick bites. I think we have like TikToked our attention span. And I think that shows try to be quippier with like, let's just get there, let's do a fun thing. And like, even with like, let's go into the live tribal, like the reason why we didn't know like what MC was saying to them is because they wanted a surprise. They wanted us to be shocked. And like, they wanted that because that makes people drawn in and watch for that short period rather than an arc of like following like what everyone's trying to do, which would have been less interesting for that tribal and that who went home, but way more interesting for the arc of the season to know all of those conversations and who was saying what.
I think
that's true.
No, I think you're totally right. And I think you bring up an interesting point with, just like what Survivor or Big Brother would look like today, because I need to change this. I don't know why this is so bright. Okay. Sorry about that. This is bothering me. No, but I think about like what Survivor would look like if it came out today. And it's really hard to say. Like, it's a whole different world. But I think about, well, what was once America's favorite island-based reality show, and now I look at today's America's favorite island-based reality show, which is Love Island. And you may say, well, there aren't that many similarities there. And I say, oh, no. I think there are a lot of similarities between Survivor Borneo and Love Island nowadays, which is people go on there with an expectation or a hope that they will become stars afterwards, or like there is this knowledge that, or I guess this is maybe more Survivor Australian Outback or like, the early Survivor seasons, and maybe Big Brother too, is like, if you go on here, you will become a micro celebrity. And I think because of that, we can see the difference of how social media sort of makes these two shows different. I mean, the early Survivor is all about realism. Big Brother is a little more about, playing stuff up for cameras, but I mean, there's a lot of cameras. And Love Island is, a show that comes out like 5 times a week
Yeah.
and is all just basically live cameras and live footage and drama that's built by a production, but it's real reactions. And Big Brother does this too, but if somebody gets eliminated, they'll just show people, hugging them for 10 minutes or whatever,
Yeah.
and then saying bye. It's something that is manufactured, but it's manufactured realness. While nowadays on Survivor, it is both manufactured and artificial what we're actually shown as being the truth. I legitimately think that because of the Kelly situation that happened in Island of the Idols, because they had this whole they basically showed the issues that Kelly was having and how bad Dan was, and then they showed production doing nothing about it. And then they had to reap the consequences of showing that production did nothing about it.
Yeah.
I think because of that, like they've gotten scared of showing realism. Like they did it a little in Survivor 41 and 42, 42 with the split tribal council and the thing that we're talking about today. But I think since then, maybe because of the difference in American politics or just fear of backlash or whatever else, but they want to have an entertaining product and not as much one where you think about the state of the world and whatever.
Well, they also want uncomplicated narratives, because I feel like can you even think of a winner outside of like Erica for like having less of an edit, but a winner that was like controversial, that like played a game that like was not a typical game we see in recent histories. Like they try to keep our winner clean, and I don't think that's very interesting either.
I think the obvious answer to your question is probably Gabler, who played sort of a weird game.
I forgot he existed.
But I think your greater point is true, which is like they don't want to show us like a messy winner. They don't want to show us somebody who, got blindsided and have no idea what to do. Or if they do, they want to show you a specific low point of them at the season. I think about Kenzie in 46 pre-merge. Her tribe is going home. There's only 3 people left. Maybe Bonu's still there. Who knows? But it's early, and she's at this beautiful rock formation, and she's crying, and she's saying, "This is so hard." And then from then on, she steps it up, and then she wins the season. And it's like that is true of almost every new era contestant. Erica's low moment is her, with the hourglass.
Right.
Yam Yams is when his tribe is down to nobody. Same thing. Kenzie just mentioned Rachel. I mean, she got blindsided a few times, and it's always like, I don't know where I'm going from here, and then boom, stepping it up. It's hard to see a winner who has multiple of those moments, and it's even rarer to see a winner who has none of those moments. It's very like defined. I don't know if it's really an edit thing necessarily, or if it's just a coincidence. I don't know, but it's all it feels manufactured, even if maybe it isn't supposed to be.
Yeah, and I'm curious about if that like it's probably an interesting combination between the like production, what they are looking for, and like what they are trying to do in cast. Besides a lot of light, apparently, in order to create the screen. And like what we were saying about, people just kind of do similar things. And so like, especially with a lot of these people that are able to pick themselves up, like most of them are hot. Like most of them are the same types of people. I think the only exception to that I can think of in my own recency, bad memory understanding is like Sam, but Sam was compared with another hot person, actually 2 hot people, like Genevieve and Rachel. And so I think that was like one of the only times I can think of where like someone wasn't given the same narrative of like, how do I help myself through this? and did, but like wasn't given like accolades necessarily for it, or like the most accolades. And that's just because it was competing rather than like the only one. But
Yeah.
also what's the difference between like a Sam and an Owen in that way? Like the Dodo edit or the Charlie Brown edit versus the like, I'm gonna pick myself up and do this. And a lot of that is also like very American dreamy, which is, a choice.
A choice. Yeah. No, I mean, I think you have a good point. You think about the third place winners, and it's like, Sam was second place, but runner-ups, shall we say? Sam, Owen, even Carolyn. It's like at the end of the day, what is the difference between the narrative that we're given for them? It's they have had a hard time on Survivor, but they're picking it up and they've made it all the way to Final Tribal Council, and that's good enough.
Yeah.
That's what their narrative is, because I think people want the Survivor wants the winner to be satisfying. They don't want people to sit at home being like, why did Erica just win? Why didn't Xander win, or whatever else? They want people to be like, Dee was a deserving winner. She was. And so I don't know. It's weird. It's complicated. I feel like there definitely is, whether it's fear or whether it's not, I feel like there's some there's something there for sure.
Yeah. And I think that, I think I'm kind of also seeing it in a lens. I just went to the Vegas Clock Tower Con. And like Clock Tower Cons are very interesting. They're wonderful. I know all the people that run the Vegas one. They are fantastic and work very hard at what they do.
Yeah.
And yet, like people that play Clock Tower, like certain things happen that like just kind of happen. Like I was playing a few games in a room that was like sponsored by like a big name, like kind of group. Not that big of a name, but like a good group. And whenever I played games in that room, like it was just like a click. Like no matter what happened in the game, like nothing I did mattered, because there were 11 people that knew each other and like 3 people who didn't. And anytime, like I'm thinking of specifically, I played like an Oops All Amni game, and I bingoed on day 3, and I was like so excited. It was not a hard bingo, of all. But like the right things happened. I was able to get all the things I needed, and then I bingoed. And then their immediate thought was, well, like, how could you have bingoed so early? And then everyone distrusted me. And then we ended up having to fiddle because it ran so late. And literally the demon chose me because they had to frame me. And they, in their defense, were like, I don't know what my Amni ability is. It has to do with Night Death. Whoever I'm picking keeps dying. And they won. 10 people voted for them to win. The only people that voted for me were people that knew me. And it just,
and they knew you in the role. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And there's nothing I could have done. Like that was set up from the beginning, that like, that was just what was going to happen. And I think that, really just goes back to a lot of the social dynamics, which I used to agree with you that that's one of the most interesting things I like about reality TV. And I don't know if I always would have found it changing just as I aged, or if things have changed in society, or if like what. But combination of all of it, I think probably has just led to me being more downtrodden about it, of like, like, I really want to see a teeny or a Camilla succeed and like for themselves, and I'm not going to, and I just kind of know that. Or an Owen, or any example, name any person.
I think I don't remember if this got brought up on this podcast in the past, or this is just something I thought of myself, but I was thinking about it, and I was just like, man, if you think about Survivor, there aren't that many like quirky characters who have won, or quote unquote quirky characters. Almost every winner at the end of the day is very much like stereotypical, usually straight, attractive man or woman. You know what I mean? Like there are not a lot of exceptions, and there aren't a lot of people like, I think about Survivor 44 again. At the end, you have Yamian and Carolyn. And Carolyn is probably, they're both wacky, but Carolyn's definitely the wackier of it. And they play very similar games. They play basically identical games. I would argue, as other people would, that Carolyn might have played the better game. But at the end of the day, she not only, loses, but she doesn't get a vote, and Heidi gets a vote instead. And it's like, what does that say? I feel like that says as much about bias that exists within every one of us as much as anything else. And there were so many other examples throughout Survivor of the same thing. But I think that's sort of the most obvious one. And it goes back to something that, New Era Survivor hasn't had a lot of good social dynamic moments, shall we say, where kind of peels back the red curtain. But one of them comes from the very start of Survivor 46, where Jeff enters the season by saying, one of you has already lost. One of you will not get along with everybody here, and you have already lost the season because you just won't be able to get along with other people. And that's one of the realest aspects of Survivor that it feels like, I wouldn't say went over my head, but it's like, I never thought about it that directly. It's like there were 18 people on the beach, and at the end of the day, one is probably underselling it. There's probably only 12 viable people to win. 6 of them have already lost. And that's maybe even still me being kind. And I think that's just, you look at the game and I think it makes sense, Yeah.
And I think part of that, going back to some of the comments that we had about the diversity initiatives things, I was thinking about Carolyn, and I was thinking about there's an issue that happens a lot in LGBT queer spaces where there aren't enough representation, and so we expect a representation to be good, be a good example. And I think that Carolyn,
be all-encompassing.
I think that Carolyn is so interesting as a player and as a person because Carolyn wanted to play a different game than most people do. She wanted to allow her emotions and her true authentic self to be present and visible and a part of why she is good at this game.
Yeah.
And I think that if there were more of that, then I think we would have had room for Carolyn to be messy and imperfect in it. But that message is not much different than Marianne's message of I'm doing this for the weirdos. But Carolyn cried more. Carolyn was kookier. Carolyn was presented as this character who is authentically her, I'm sure, but a lot. Up to a 10. And that is a lot. And I want a world where Carolyn doesn't have to be the perfect example of how to show this because more people are showing it. And so then we can potentially have a flawed winner in that way. And this is the not perfect example of the type of play I would like to see, but I like this play. And you don't have to be the role model of this or the spokesperson of this. But many people are asked to be that because until recently, we didn't even care about that's probably harsh. We didn't have specific numbers in mind of what types of people we had on the show. But even with that, there's a lot of things outside of who is on the checklist. I care a lot about again LGBT and queer things. Many gay people are homophobic. Many trans people are transphobic. Just because someone ticks a box doesn't mean that they encompass kind of the values that you hope, or that they are going to champion all the people on their team. MC is going to talk to Jawan about this. Some people will, but some people won't. And if you are only looking at data points, then I don't think you're capturing the spirit of what your diversity initiative is hoping to achieve.
Yeah, it's going back to the split tribal council too. It's I think it says something about the game design and about all that, where you can have all these different personalities, all these different people who happen to be Black, and they can have all types of different personalities. There is no one, black personality. Like there's not one representative. There's a whole array, but they all go home at this point.
Yeah.
And it's like I think that is why it's concerning. It would be one thing if it were, the people who are all going home are people who happen to, be kind of kooky or be kind of wild or whatever, or are game bots or whatever. That would be like, okay, that just more of the game design, and you screwed up by playing that way. It's like you should not, as a player, be at such a big disadvantage compared to a white man just by
existing,
being who you are.
Well, the other, and maybe this since you have a lot better kind of history remembering of the players, but like many of the new era, at the very least, black players went home at the hands of other black players, which is again part of the kind of structural issue. This happens a lot in marginalized spaces where like if you had people fighting for resources, then they are not going to leave that scarcity mindset just because there's an abundance. Like their body doesn't know that there's an abundance. And so I think there's a reason why we see that time and time again, where Jawan takes out Nate, or, Rome takes out Asia. Like they do this in part because horizontal oppression is part of the power structures, and they didn't do anything to dismantle that. And so they are also allowing room for this might be a hot take, but they're allowing room for the people that they are bringing in for the diversity initiative to be the villains, to be like, harmed by doing something that will then be cast in a bad light. And I don't think that that's safe. Like, I think and I think this in any, again, policy like this, and I have been in policies like this personally, I've seen friends go through this, I've seen, TV shows do this, but like, if you tell Black people, queer people, trans people, et cetera, we want you and you're here, you need to make sure that they're safe there. And if you're not, you're just setting them up for failure. That's, something that's said a lot with like trans visibility. If like visibility without protection is a threat, like the same thing is true here. If you're going to bring a lot more people of color onto your show without structurally changing things, then you're threatening them.
I think this is a good point, but I don't think it just extends to people of color or even just trans people or gay people or queer people. I mean, you look throughout the course of the Survivor history, how often has there been an all-women's alliance proposed that got taken down by a woman?
Yes.
I mean, this is something
what
that
a
good
example, yeah.
And, it happens, it's seemingly like every other season or every 3 seasons. It's like the first example I can think of is Survivor Palau, when Katie Gallagher and Jen Lyon come together and are like, hey, we're going to form an all-women's thing to finally take out Tom and Ian because they have been controlling this tribe for the entire time. And then Karen gets word of it, goes to Tom about it, and is saying, we can't let the women take over. We can't let them take over.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's kind of one of the most direct examples, but it's not even just proposed women alliances. I mean, it extends throughout the entirety of the history of the show. Meanwhile, I feel like, maybe you could say maybe it still exists, but I feel like it just doesn't happen as often with guys.
No.
I just, like, for whatever reason, aka for structural reasons, for the reasons of our society existing, I feel like, it doesn't happen like that for
especially the threat too of the Women's Alliance. Like, we've had one successful Women's Alliance, and every single season we have to get rid of the idea of a Women's Alliance being able to happen. And like, let alone as it's happened, I don't remember a conversation of this happening, of we have to get rid of the strong men's alliance. Or if it does happen, it's done. It's kind of the same as like romantasy or like chick lit things where it's like, oh, that's cute, like you be in your corner over there. Like, I felt that with Soph. Fuck it, we're calling her Sophie at the right now. I don't want to deal with them. So with Sophie, like in the challenge, like praying, chanting, saying mantras to herself, whatever, about strong women, then showing all these strong women. Like, shut up. Like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand the point, but like forced, like, let me show you feminism, let me show you strong women is not the same as letting women be strong. Those women were badasses. Just let it happen.
This actually goes back to what we were talking about at the very start of the podcast, which is the idea of using somebody's last name to refer to them. I was thinking about that for this because as we know, Jeff Probst tends to use that for male contestants he likes. The only exception really being Wentworth. And I think that applies to this sort of forced, like, I wouldn't say forced feminism, but like kind of, I don't know the word to describe it. When I think about Sarah, Survivor Kagayan, and Winners at War being like, hey, I want you to refer to me as Lucina. And Jeff being like, this is a great moment for Survivor because we're honoring women. That's right. Women can be strong too. Or says
women can have
like
last names.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, Jesus Christ, like, what are we doing? Like, that is not, that's not like what if you have to force yourself to be, woke or whatever, I don't even like using that word, but force yourself to be woke, then you're not being woke. It's performative. It's the show's being performative and isn't authentically, representing men and women well.
And that's something that is like very well studied, I think. Like, I remember when I was in my PhD program, like when all of us were like TAing, and like there were two guys in the program, and even if they corrected students, they were called Dr. So-and-so. They were called professor. They were called all of this. And like me and all the other women were called our first names and barely that. Like sometimes I remember I cheekily, because we were encouraged to do like a syllabus quiz as like a graded thing just early on to kind of just get things rolling. Sure. And I put on there a question of what my name was. And the amount of people that just got it wrong after like, 2 or 3 class days was astonishing. And just does not happen with men in the same way. It would be silly and like ha funny if it was something that wasn't so clearly, again, implicit bias, and like people do this not because of like the individual person, but like different demographics about them. And it is a interesting thing to push back on. And it is something that like we shouldn't also treat as novel. Like, it's just a very bizarre thing. And like, I don't know, it kind of goes, I feel like, I don't remember that happening, but as soon as you said it, it kind of jogged my memory with it. But like, it feels similar to me of like, whenever Jeff tries to do something to pretend like Survivor is like profound in some way, like sometimes, sure. Sometimes lots of things can be very insightful or like show an interesting thing about humanity or be just very entertaining. But like, this is a TV show, man. Like, we don't have to, it doesn't have to be like the highest brow in order to be good. And whenever Jeff does that, I just kind of cringe a little and I'm like, calm down. Like,
there are levels to it. Like, I think, the average American can be stupid or whatever else, or the average person in the world can be stupid, but they're not stupid enough not to be able to see authenticity. Like, the reason why something like Joe and Eva's moment last season sort of permeated, media and became almost like a national thing is because it's authentic. Meanwhile, you look at, I don't know, Survivor Game Changers and Sari crossing a balance beam. That's not authentic, and everybody knows it's not authentic. It can be a nice moment. These two things can both be nice moments, but at the end of the day, if you want to look for something that's going to touch you deep within your soul, the reason why Joe and Eva resonates with people as it resonated with me is because it's like, it's carnal, it's human, it's emotion, it's beyond the game. With Sari, it's like, it's cool to see this 4-time player at the time cross this balance beam, but I think it's cool because she's done this 4 times, and this is her survivor journey. If I'm turning on the TV for the first time, I've never watched a television before, and I see Joe and Eva, I will, as a human, understand the gravity and the emotion of that moment. If I see Suri crossing a balance beam, I'm like, why didn't she just go in the water?
Yeah, well, I think there's another point to this too, potentially, because I agree that like that you could tell the authenticity difference, but I think the other is that one is like it's kind of the same as like people watching like things with people with disabilities to be like, wow, what a godsend this is. Or like voyeuristic, like, watching My 600-Pound Life. Like, I think watching
Love on
Suri
the Spectrum.
Watching Suri cross a balance beam is people watching someone who is bigger and less able to be fit and be just kind of macho man, do a thing that like is usually embarrassing for them. And I think Joe and Eva, even though like it has the kind of structural, like the elements that could be the same as Suri's, Joe took Eva seriously, and Joe put his like game on the line in a way that it was authentic, but was also like humanizing. Like it was not saying that Eva like needed this, or that she is a problem, or like, oh, I have to help my autistic person right now. It was a genuine moment that like Eva would have been fine, but was made better by Joe's presence. And she also asked for it. Like, it goes back to the editing as well. I don't think it would have been as profound of a moment if we didn't see Eva tell Joe directly, here's how you help me. Yes. Joe didn't figure it out on his own. Joe did it. And like, that was something that he, had the onus to do after he was told. But like, Eva knows how to care for Eva and told Joe how to do it. And then Joe did it. And that is not like voyeuristic act or a, disability. Like, let's put it on a pedestal, like how inspirational this is.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. And I think about Survivor 48 in the context of this. And it's interesting because at the end, Eva came this close to beating Kyle at the end with the vote. And I was on this podcast and I was once again shouting from the rooftops that, hey, Eva's played a really good game this entire season, because she had this idol this entire season, was in this majority alliance this entire season. It was never targeted this entire season. At the end of the day, I still do probably think, Kyle's more deserving at the end of the day, but I thought it was a good step that she had gotten that many votes, because it told me that, hey, just because you are unlike other people on the season or whatever in some way, or to some extent, I'll just tell you my thoughts when Eva was announced for the season and was like, this is the first openly autistic player. It's like, oh, this is gonna be like exploitative, what I mean? That was my worry.
I thought that too.
That was my worry, and to see that it wasn't like that at the end of the day made me be like, okay, the fact that she almost won and was an actual great representative, and felt like an actual player, not like a gimmick. That's what I want. But also the fact that I have to be worried about that at all kind of shows maybe not even just Survivor, but just kind of the state of like how we perceive the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it be Love on the Spectrum is the big one, especially for this example, because that show, to me personally, is like the grossest thing ever. Like, just to me. And it's like, I understand why people like it. I get it. I really do. But to me, it's like, it's just pure exploitation for a season or whatever else.
Yeah, I agree. I also think, because I think, man, I have so many thoughts about like diversity things because I work so closely with most of it. And it reminds me of something that happened in 47 with Teeny. Yes, 47 with Rachel.
Yes.
Oh my God. Name the season something.
I know.
God
I
sakes.
know. Yeah.
I remember in like the final four or whatever, final five, when Teenie gave the speech about Sam and like Sam being asked by teachers to like pick up the tables and chairs in school, and you know, he wanted that to happen. And as soon as that happened, I don't know where Teenie was like in their own understanding of their gender at that moment. What I know is that I have worked for over a decade with trans people. I knew that that was a trans narrative. And I also knew CBS probably didn't get it. Most people didn't get it. And so it was in the edit because it was misunderstood. And they were just like, what a weird thing to say. And I think that that's also very telling of, you know, and you know, I don't quite know how to like make the point work here of like what's exploitative and what's not and what's authentic. But like, I think part of it is like, we want an autism story. We want a trans story. We want a Black story. Like, when you know what you're looking for of the beats, then it just like, you feel it and you're like, ugh. But when you are a part of those groups, or when you see those things happen in these small ways that kind of slip through, and you're like, oh, you didn't realize that like that was a comment about this, and so therefore you let it go through, like it just it registers differently. And like those moments really give so much humanity to these people. And that, I will say, probably in large part comes down to like how the edit is done is who is in the editing room. And it is both ways. Either zero people are like, you know, those kind of diversity points in the room, and which I think is what happened with Teenie, is my guess. I have no idea who edits Survivor, but my assumption is there's not a trans person there. And so they don't read it, and then it happens. Not, or you have someone that does read it and they help it get through, and they shine lights on it through, you know, doing their craft of editing well, having a story shaped around it, or having it be a moment that they protect because they understand it. And so I want there to be more of the latter in the editing room and in the people who are higher up with noticing and kind of treating these stories well. So that way they're shown.
Yeah. No, I think that is a great point. And I think, you know, that can be extended to basically the entirety of the new era, not even just, you know, an autism thing or a trans thing or whatever. I didn't, you know, I think you can look at just like the new era has featured almost every contestant, it feels like, having their own tragic backstory given to the camera. This is why I'm here. This has been the problem with my life. We saw it with this episode with Savannah, her talking about, you know, going into an environment and finding it, you know, not what she wanted, which is something I can relate to as a journalist who may be going through the exact same thing right now, who's to say, or at least to some extent. But, you know, that story can be real, and it can give me more of a human sense of who Savannah is instead of a TV character. But at the end of the day, I'm not emotionally affected by that. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, I look into Survivor things, and I don't want to seem parasocial, but I see things in players like you do with Teenie. And I saw, you know, with Carolyn in 44, the entire season, she's talking about, hey, nobody ever hears me and nobody ever listens to me. And then she gets the final tribal council and it's the same thing. And then she goes on the Traitors and it's the same thing. And it's like, I feel like, even though you haven't talked to me at the camera about it, I feel like I understand you on a human level and a personal level, in the sense of like, you have gotten so used to people not listening to you, and people seeing you as inferior or just not listening to you, that it's almost your default state that you don't expect people to listen to you. And I think that's fascinating.
It is. And it's also, it's so interesting I think this is the interesting kind of social experiment that I like, which happens more now because of the Traitors and because of a lot of the kind of online spaces with this, but like, it's transferable. Like, Carolyn was on Survivor and had this, was on the Traitors and had this, was on RHAP Mafia and had this. Like, Carolyn is going to be treated that way in whatever room she's in. And that means that she is going to fight against that in every room she goes into. And that's part of it. That's part of what she has to bring. And that is, going back to what we were saying earlier, not something that Rizzo has to bring in the same way. And so it's, competing on a game show, with easy mode or hard mode and like all these ways, or being asked to wear like a heavy coat that's like weighs 20 pounds while you do this big physical task. Like, if that's what we're asking people to do, we need to pay attention to that. And like Survivor's so close to getting it because going through these personal stories tells you that, because it tells you Carolyn had to play this game differently than Jam did.
Mm-hmm.
Or, Teeny had to play this game differently than Genevieve would, or whatever. Like, you learn who is carrying what with them and how, equity, how they helped themselves and where they came from. So that way, rather than seeing, wow, look how like far you've come distance-wise, being like, wow, you didn't move that far, but you were wearing 100-pound weights on your feet. And so you moving 3 steps is way more impressive than like this dude moving 100 yards.
Yeah. I think the equity aspect of it is interesting. Not even just from a challenge perspective, just from a sense of like, I don't know, just like the way that we are presented, these people, these TV characters, they are distilled people. They are distilled through a filter. And, I think about the older seasons versus these newer seasons. And I feel like a lot of that filter that we are given comes through the sob story. Which story do you, the viewer, resonate the most with? That is the person that maybe you want to root for, versus older seasons where we don't get a sob story. We just get their natural personality. But I think, as I said, audiences can get is like, you don't necessarily need to know somebody's story to understand their story through the way they act.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I think about the very start of the season. We once again talk about equality and equity. There were only 2 Black people on Survivor Borneo. It was Jervis and it was Ramona. And Ramona talked about in Confessions, naturally, not a sob story, about, hey, I haven't had a white friend since I was in elementary school. And Jervis talks about, hey, I had to learn how to swim before I got here. I've never gone canoeing. I've never, been in the ocean. These natural dialogues that showed up as a result of Survivor, I feel like are just asides, are as indicative of showing me a person's completeness and how they are registering and how they're adapting to the Survivor environment just as well, if not more so, than say Savannah talking about how she was a reporter and now she's not, or something else,
Right. And I think this, not two points. Not every person has to have an interesting narrative.
Yes.
Or identifiable narrative. And you also have to, if you cast a season, trust your players. Like, there's allowed to be boring seasons. There's allowed to be boring episodes. Like, all of us are going to complain, but we're going to complain regardless. And also, loving something is sometimes complaining about it. But like, you have you have to be unafraid of your show, like, missing the mark if you want it to sail above the mark in a lot of ways. That's not a saying, but that's a saying that I made up now. Yeah. But like, that is something that they're just so afraid of. And again, maybe that goes back to kind of our attention span and like what they're trying to create, both moments for advertising, but also moments for to make sure that like people get it. We get who these people are. This is who Savannah is. Savannah used to be a reporter, and like all these other things. This is who, all these people are. And like, we need snapshots of all of them. And like, maybe we just need to allow some people to be purple and allow some people to shine and like help create a structure that is helpful rather than forcing narratives and forcing these, kind of like Full House sitcom moments of, here's a lesson. here's what's coming.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I was just trying to think while you were talking. I was just trying to think in my mind, like, what reality shows that are out today really feel like they tell the whole story, warts and all, of everything that's going on. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know. It's not Big Brother, at least certainly not the edited show.
No.
It's not Survivor. The Traders is a little too like it's a little too fast for that.
It's camp
It's camp.
too.
You
Yeah.
know, the challenge is also camp in its
I
own
think
way.
Claim to Fame is like the
Yeah.
closest I can think of that's authentic. And I think that's because it's trying. Like it's not a show that has existed. It's like finding its feet and it's allowing itself to find it, and also kind of the parts of the structural elements of the show allow for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't think of any other show offhand that I would think of like that.
It's interesting because the answer I came up with in my head is a show I don't really watch, but I've been watching this season because Big Brother, and that is The Amazing Race, where that is a show that is formulaic, but it's formulaic in the sense of like if somebody is struggling on the road, then they're going to be frustrated with each other, and you're going to get a dynamic.
That's a good answer.
Of what happens between the two of them, or if they succeed, they'll hug and you'll understand why they're friends or lovers or whatever else. If they fail together, and you can see who pins the blame on who.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with The Amazing Race, and the reason I don't usually watch it, is because at the end of the day, I don't know anything about these people without that. You know what I mean? I don't know who, Jane and Jack are. Versus, Mo and Joe or whatever else. While with Big Brother and this season of The Amazing Race, which I've been really enjoying, it is, I already know who Chelsea is. So seeing Chelsea interact with her dad is like, yeah, I can understand that dynamic a little more because I already know one of these people and, all that stuff like that. And I think it's fun. And The Amazing Race is almost the complete 180 of where Survivor's at right now, where Survivor's all manufactured, but it tells you directly, this is what's going on in this person's life. The Amazing Race is like the complete opposite, where it's like, me and Sarah are friends and we're on The Amazing Race. All right, we gotta go. And then you'll only learn about our dynamic through our, struggles and our, successes.
Yeah, I think that maybe part of this I was thinking about The Mole. Did you watch The Mole, both the old Mole and the Netflix Mole?
I watched a little of the new one. I haven't seen any of the old one, but I know people love it.
Yeah, so I haven't watched everything of the old Mole, but I've watched like the original season. I watched Celebrity Mole. I was a huge fan when I was a kid, and maybe this is like the actual way for us to see like what would have happened in 2025 with these shows, because I think something that is very interesting with The Mole is that it's social deduction. And so old Mole, like classic era of it, was you have to get to know people in somewhat of an authentic way. Like there are challenges, there are things to kind of within the show show you things, like show you opportunities for the mole to sabotage, and you can watch it. But also a lot of the questions are like, does the mole have kids? What color eyes does the mole have? Like, where did they sit at dinner? And it's a lot of things that like you have to have conversations, and you have to, help yourself read people. And I think that is something that was so like critical to the popularity of it. And that's something that they tried to, again, like TikTokify and dilute with the Netflix Mole. They tried to like, we saw nothing of them outside of a challenge. And it was so hard to like see relations happen, to see casual moments. And that's not alluring. Like, sure, you can still figure it out, I guess, but like not in the same ways. Like none of the questions were that personal either. Like they were all about like, where were they in this challenge? Not like, do they have kids? Are they married? Where are they from? Like those types of things.
I can't speak to the mole, but I can somehow wrap this all together in one big bow by saying there are similarities between old Survivor and new Survivor in this element that also connects the different winners that we see, and indeed the relationship or the difference between how Black people are perceived and how white people are perceived on the show. Because in season 4, Survivor Marquesas, you had Vesepia. And the way that Vesepia, the final immunity challenge was, I believe, no, the second to last immunity challenge was answering questions about your tribe mates. Who are they? What is, what is Tammy's sister's name? How many kids does Pascal have? Or, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Getting to know people. And the way that she won that is she listened. She listened to people. And at the time, you could have a luxury item. And so she had like a notepad, which they later banned because that was too powerful. But the idea remains the same, where she took this information and legitimately like learned stuff about people, while some of the faker people, or maybe not faker, but some of the other people on the season maybe didn't take the time to know people. And at the end of the day, she was rewarded with that by eventually winning $1 million. But at the time, it was a really controversial win because she was the first Black winner in at least Survivor history, if not reality TV history. And she was called a bad winner, and she was called not a real winner, not a real survivor, a cheater or whatever else. Like if you look back on the old forums, very bad. Don't recommend it. But I mean, it says something. It says something about society then, maybe society now, and also how reality TV has changed from being a show about people authentically meeting each other and the dynamics that exist between them, now to Survivor nowadays, which wants to hide those things.
Yeah, I'm thinking a good comparison point to that is, what was her name? The person who was a therapist who was like, there are youth here. Let's ask about Hogwarts houses. Hello, fellow youth. Please tell me about your Harry Potter. And like,
was that Hannah Rose?
No, that was it. It was in, who are they saying it with? That's gonna bug me. No, this was in 42.
42.
I think, was it? I feel like Marianne was there. I feel like
I think it says something that even I can't remember.
Yeah, neither of us remember because it doesn't matter. We're gonna remember at some point. It's like 3 a.m. But like it's so hello fellow youth when people like try and relate. And I think this, one of my favorite personal rants is people don't know how to socialize and like exhibit all of this. Like if you, part of socializing is trying something and having it not work, and then trying something else, and like genuinely being there, not just like performing that you're being there, or like figuring out like, here's a good talking point where they're going to connect with me. And like, that's why Sari does well. That's why Parvati does well. That's why Vesepia did well. Like all of these people are genuinely hearing and listening and like interacting. And I don't think that this is a criticism just of like, new era Survivor. I think that this is a criticism of humanity currently in, the year of our Lord 2025. Like the amount of clients that I have that tell me when they are like experiencing a personal crisis issue, emotional moment, etc., that they like post about it on like a Discord and then people ignore them and then they're like, I don't know what's going on here. And I'm like, that's not intimacy. Like you can't post where, dozens of people can read it and expect someone to reach out to you. You have to like call a friend. You have to like, message a person to be like, hey, I'm really struggling. Can you come get dinner with me? Or come let me cry on your shoulder. Like that's very different.
That's just human psychology. I mean, I think about like if I'm in a crowd and I fall and break my leg, if I'm like, hey, I broke my leg, can somebody help me? People are a lot less likely to help if I'm like, hey, you, Sarah, can you help me? I seem to have broken my leg, And no, I think that applies to, in its own way, reality TV as well. It's hard to say with Survivor because at the end of the day, it is an edited show, no matter how long or short the episodes are. But I mean, I look at Big Brother and it's like, the cool thing about Big Brother is you can see the entire dynamic of the show, at least when the feeds aren't cut. And if you look at the winners, for the most part, across the board, they are people who can connect with people. There are certainly exceptions, but for the most part, it is people who are personable and who can make genuine connections with a lot of people and can form natural human friendships.
Yeah.
You know,
and that
I think
people
about
just want them to win, because at the end of the day, on any of these reality shows, part of it is going to be, do I want this person to have a lot of money? Plain and simple. And I don't think that that's, incorrect. Like, we have this conversation fairly often when it comes to, like, the Mike Whites and now the, Nate's on the show of, I have a lot of money. What am I going to do? The Gabler kind of approach to that. And I think there was also a conversation with this, like, about Xander, and I can't think of another young person recently that has been that far, but, like, do we want to give this, like, 19-year-old a bunch of money? Do we want to give this rich person a bunch of money?
And that used to be a huge part of the show. Was, I don't want to give BB. I don't want BB to make the end because he's 70 years old and he has like $2 million.
Yeah.
Already. Somebody else is more deserving. I don't know if I should give Jenna Maraska the money because she's 21 and she's a swimsuit model and I don't know what she's going to do with it.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Not to interrupt you, but I mean, I think
no, yeah. And this is the problem. This is the problem of capitalism, which, like, when we, like, I wish that we can be in a place where, like, we kind of make fun of, the traders or whatever reality shows have, like, that's the prize, like, nothing. But I wish that people are just interested in, like, the spirit of the game. They're not going on this in an attempt to change their life and, like, be able to afford healthcare. Like, that you can't do that. Like, you can't play well, you can't think well, you can't operate in a way that is just fun. You can't be fun feeds when you are hoping to, in some way, like, drastically improve the quality of your life by winning this money.
See, this is a place where I actually disagree with you. I think that the authenticness of somebody going out on Survivor being like, it would change my life to win this money. Sure, it can change the way that you play your game, but what have we been talking about this whole time? A lack of authenticity. Saying to the camera, quite honestly, I need the money, is going to connect you with more people automatically and make your story, more relatable. But
is that a problem of people? Like, that feels kind of like Squid Games-y to me, of, like,
I mean, Squid Game exists for a reason because people will put themselves through hell for a chance at a better life. That's what the whole concept of Survivor in the first place basically was, hey, do you want to be on a remote island for 40 days essentially with the chance to change your life? And 20 or 16 people said yes, and that's where the format's gone. Same thing with Big Brother.
I think that's valid, but I think that just because we have been in a place where we need a weird kind of dystopian reality where some entity provides money to the most entertaining person doesn't mean it needs to stay that way. And I think Survivor's been on for 50 seasons and we have seen, highs and lows of it. I hope that there's a way for people in general, but also Survivor viewers, Survivor editors, to show us authenticity and have us care about it without it being like, here is a poor person.
Yeah. But I mean, think about it. It's like, you don't see that much nowadays.
No.
Like, the tide has turned. I went from, I wouldn't say a lot of poor people, but at least like a lot of people wanting to change their lives to, at some point, a gradual change probably. All of a sudden, it's the exact opposite where almost everybody's out on Survivor because it's their dream to do it. And it's their goal not to win, but to be there in the first place. And so that's why I say I don't mind somebody nowadays. I guess I'm thinking through the viewpoint of nowadays. I don't mind somebody nowadays who's going out on Survivor like, hey, I need the money. I'm not just doing this because I love the show. They can also love the show, but I'm doing this because there's a reason to it. It's inherently exploitative, but that's all reality TV. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And I think that I think in some ways we probably have the same point. It's just, through different lenses of this, because I think that if Survivor wasn't currently in this weird place, I don't think it would be as remarkable. Like if we were in season 1 again, for someone to say, I need this money, because again, that was the concept. And so Survivor has shifted in this way where like it created this, but that doesn't mean that is subverting like the tropes by being like, wow, look at this like this white man is doing well in this challenge, like look how cool that is, because for so long we haven't had that because we changed it so that way we didn't have that and now we have that again type mentality. And so I get that approach, but like, it's just so boring.
It's boring. I was thinking about this earlier, but I didn't really have a good opportunity to say it. But I'll say it now. It's like I'm doing the Survivor podcast because Survivor is my favorite show, and this was a good episode for the most part. Like I do think it was a good, solid episode of Survivor. But if I think about what shows have I been interested in watching, what reality TV have I been interested in watching recently, it is The Amazing Race and The Challenge, because those are shows that, if nothing else, are mixing it up a little bit. It's doing something that's a little bit unique. The Challenge, give it all the shit you want in the world because it can deserve it. But it changes up the format and it tries to do new things. And The Amazing Race normally doesn't do that, but this season they are. And I think, I don't know what the ratings have been, but I know that people across the board are like, whoa, this is like a very solid season of The Amazing Race. Same with The Challenge right now. And it's like, as you said before, you can't be afraid to take risks as a reality show.
Are you a jet lag fan?
I am a jet lag fan. Yes, I am.
That's the main thing that I watch these days. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And sometimes it's boring.
Sometimes it's boring. Yeah.
But that's just how the cookie crumbles. And I think that them not being afraid for it to be boring helps. Like them not being afraid to, spoilers for last season of, the game was over on like episode 3.
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, now we're playing for second place. And like, we're doing this. And like, that was so cool to watch. And it was so interesting to see the dynamics of it. And like, no show on any network or any network would do that. They would never risk like, oh my God, we have to like do something somewhere to make sure that like this show lasts for 13 episodes. This show like does the thing that we want it to do. And I think that like I just want Survivor to like be different, and I don't really know how I want it to be different. I just want it to be different. Can I I have a question for you.
Sure.
Because I know that's so great, because we've gone so long mostly talking about like the concept of Survivor and like the season. I want to suggest that the only thing we talk about from the episode is whether that was a good reward, because I have strong opinions about the reward of the food reward and potentially Savannah's. We can also get into some strategy talk with that, but I think that we should not talk about almost anything else and just discuss deli sandwiches. Yay or nay? Look,
I mean, I think you're right, and I completely support talking about deli sandwiches, because I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to be a Survivor hater. I know we talked about this for an hour and 23 minutes, but like at the end of the day, I still think Survivor's a good show. Maybe it's still the best show on television. It might still be. Like, that's just me. I do a podcast about Survivor. Of course I think that. But I mean, at the end of the day, all the interesting things about this episode, whether it be Christina getting an idol or Savannah having the interesting thing, at the end of the day, it doesn't change the structural fact that everything feels the same.
Yeah.
But you know what would feel great is having a deli sandwich in my stomach right now, because I'm kind of hungry.
So here are my I'm strongly in favor of this reward. I think that, like, as soon as it happened, there was nothing I would want more in my own personal life than to have a spread of every option, and I get to choose what to put on a sandwich. Like, it's the, like, sweet tomatoes, like soup plantation thing of like, there's nothing like a salad bar. There's nothing like just being able to get whatever you want and put it on a thing. And so, like, anything I didn't realize I wanted it so deep in my soul until it happened on TV. Because, like, I always think about, like, what I would want as a reward, what I can conceptualize wanting. And, like, I presume I would want, like, donuts or, like, fried food or, a soft drink or an iced tea. Like, something that, like, you
can't get on an island.
Yeah, you can't get on an island. And, like, I'm just so crave worthy.
Yes.
But, like, really, I mean, if I'm thinking about kind of taste that I would want, like, what more can you get? Like, if you want a really strong taste, like, put more onions on your sandwich, put some mustard on it. If you want, like, a more, like, refreshing bite, tomatoes, cucumbers, like, having some soft bread, having some meats and cheeses, like, this is great. I hope they also had iced tea, though, because that sounds really good. You have to have some drink with this.
Yeah, you successfully made me hungry, so congratulations.
I'm also hungry.
But no, I mean, I think that it's interesting because, like, us sitting at home are like, yeah, I would love a deli sandwich. But you look at the reactions of the contestants when they got told, hey, it's a build it yourself sandwich thing.
Yeah.
I saw Alex's face. He was like upset. He was like, I have to make my own sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, I saw it in his expression. And it's funny because, it's like, I kind of get it. I do, where it's like, sometimes if I'm like if I'm like at a sandwich bar, it's like, oh great, I get to make my own sandwich. But if I'm at, like, I don't know, if I'm at, like, a wedding and they're like, hey, make your own sandwich or make your own meal, I'm like, I thought I was supposed to be, like, this is a reward. I shouldn't have to be doing this.
I should be delivered this. Yes. And
exactly.
I do think sometimes I get stressed. I'm not a great sandwich maker in terms of, like, I don't know what goes well together. Like, I don't know the ratios I want always. And so there's many a time where I want to see a sandwich that, like, is someone thought about the ingredients that went on it. Someone, like, that has culinary skill, crafted it.
Yeah.
But I also know what sounds good in what moment. Like, if I was hungry on Survivor, like, I can imagine making, like, so many different kinds of sandwiches that would satisfy, like, so many different parts of, like, my brain and my body of, like, what would be good. And being able to, like, create that for myself, it feels to me like the equivalent of, like, the fresh fruit reward, here's like a protein, like a standard protein reward, here's a carby reward. It feels like the best of all those worlds because I can create the sandwich journey that I want.
I'll tell you, like, what the rewards that really appeal to me are, which aren't too dissimilar. It's like, in my day-to-day life, when I am going through the motions, something I never crave is a burger. Like, I like burgers.
Yeah, I also never crave a burger.
Good food, but I also can look deep down within my soul and say, if I were on Survivor, I'd be craving a burger. I really won't. I don't know why, but I'm like, yeah, I bet if I were on the island and I didn't have access to basically any meat, what I would want is I would want a piece of bread and a piece of meat and maybe even some other stuff, some ketchup, some mustard, some processed goodness. That is what I would want. And the other thing I want, which they get given basically every season nowadays, is a charcuterie board because it's kind of similar. It's you get to build what you want of your meats, your cheeses, your fig, whatever you put on a charcuterie board. But it's like, I'd go foolish. I would go insane. I'd be eating so much salami, you have no idea.
Yeah, I agree. My only criticism, I think, of the deli sandwich reward is that they should have had a crunchy with it. Like, you need a chip For me, I would want onion rings. Like, I love onion rings. French fries, I like, but to me, I feel like I would be afraid that they would fall into the Survivor pizza category, where it's like
yeah,
a bad fry is worse than no fry. Like, I don't want to eat
true.
it.
Yeah.
Whereas an onion ring feels like something that they will get right. It'll have the crisp that I want. And like, having something to either put on the sandwich like a chip or to have next to it that's like crunchy, salty. It'll be a top tier reward.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm convinced that not only do I want a sandwich on Survivor, but I want a sandwich in real life right now as well.
Yes.
And that's great. And yeah, I also think eating a sandwich is a good reward in terms of like actually being rewarding for like your body,
Yeah. I don't think they're gonna get too sick after.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like eating fried food or whatever where it's gonna, make you regret things or even get you medevac, which happened once. I mean, like,
the coffee reward, whenever they do coffee rewards, I'm like, what are we doing?
That seems just like insane. Yeah.
Same with alcohol. Like, I'm not a drinker, and so maybe if I was a drinker, I'd feel differently because I can believe it feels to me like a soda would, where it's like I know the feeling to crave a soda, and so like I can envision people feeling that way with an alcoholic beverage, but like I can't envision ever thinking it's a good idea to drink alcohol when I'm actively on Survivor.
Yeah. No, I mean, the reason I think, I don't know if it applies nowadays, but at least back in the day, the reason why you give a contestant alcohol or give them coffee is because they are operating on nothing else. So they're going to feel those effects. In Survivor Amazon, Alex Bell, they had like a coffee hut where everybody got to drink as much coffee as possible. And Alex had like 4 cups of coffee and he was literally like actually bouncing off the walls.
Yeah.
And then you have so many in the early seasons examples of people drinking alcohol and just getting absolutely sloshed.
I mean, this is when Survivor is the most like Big Brother, right? Like, let's put alcohol in them. Like, let's
or the challenge.
Yeah, let's like deliver, all of this to the pantry and like allow them to have a night where they drink and see what happens.
Yeah. No, yeah, I could talk about sandwiches forever, but well, I think we covered 2 great topics in this episode: the state of our world and society, and deli sandwiches. But I'll just ask before we go off, is there anything else on your mind you want to mention?
I mean, in general, no. Those are the only 2 things ever on my mind.
Yeah. True. It should do the same for me, frankly. But yeah, no, I mean, I thought it was a good episode, but I mean, like, it's a good episode with a big asterisk, which is the thing that we talked about for an hour and 20 minutes. So
yeah, and it's also, not to touch about anything else when I only want to talk about sandwiches.
Yes,
but like, I don't want to be outcome oriented. This was a good episode, but like, there were so many worlds where it wasn't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, all right. Well, I think this is a great episode, and thank you, Sarah, for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And to the rest of you watching at home, thank you too.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your night or day. Bye-bye.
I'll get a sandwich.